Hello everyone and welcome back to the Sojourning Writer. Today we're going to be taking a look at what we had worked on Tuesday. We're going to basically just be going over some examples that are given in chapter 13. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to see how we can show rather than tell. There's about 20 examples that the author gives us, and we're going to go through each one. As you can tell, I had 3 different examples of how in depth we can go with our showing. So let's get right into it. Prompt was, she was cold. Anne shivered. Example number 2. Anne could see her breath in the late December air. Here we're doing a double take. We're doing a double. It's not only can we see her breath, but it's also December. This gives us an indication of the time of year. As Anne shivered, she flipped on the car heat, though she knew it wasn't working. So here we're giving a little bit more in depth. Not only are we saying that she shivered like we said here, but we're also saying she's looking to relieve that coldness, but it's futile. It's not working. All right, the next one. It was hot outside. Example 1. Number 2. It was hot outside. A bead of sweat rolled down Tom's temple. This is a pretty basic one. We're not necessarily even showing anything more than just the bare minimum in this case. In example 2. The cool water of the pool contrasted nicely against the summer air. Here we're giving more of the picture by saying not only are we saying it's hot, and this is particularly emphasized by summer air, we give a contrast, kind of playing each other off. The cool water of the pool. So we're also giving a scene description that there's a pool there. Example 3. Tom looked at his water bottle, unsure how much longer it would be able to keep him alive. So we're implying, not so much stating, we're definitely a lot more implying in this case that it's hot. Not only is it hot, but, the water bottle is, what's keeping him alive. Now, obviously, there's always a possibility that he's just in the middle of the woods and whatnot, and it's actually not that hot. So, but realistically, he wouldn't be worried about his water if it was cool. Typically, you have other concerns with that, and typically that's a hypothermia situation where you're looking to get warm. He looked tired. Eric yawned. Pretty basic one. Example 2. Yeah, the baby kept us up all night, Eric said, drinking his 5th cup of coffee. Here we're using dialogue to show, hey, I'm tired because of these reasons. Now, you could also just say, Eric drinking his 5th cup of coffee. This is also implying that he's tired. Example 3. No matter how long Eric stayed in the bed, he still struggled to sleep. He checked his watch. 3 days and still no sleep. Here we're also saying that he's tired. We're implying that he looked tired. We're showing all of these things in different ways. She was overweight. Tammy could no longer button her pants. Pretty basic one. Tammy wanted to take the stairs, but she knew she'd be out of breath by the first floor. Here we're also implying that she's not exercised well. These are a little bit softer when it comes to how it goes. Now, Tammy felt guilty about ordering the cake at the office trip to her favorite restaurant. She felt the judgment behind the eyes of her coworkers. They are wondering if I should even have any more food. Not only are we saying, hey, we're not just showing that she's overweight, but the fact is she's feeling the judgment. She's feeling the judgment of her coworkers. Like, hey, and then there's a thought process of cementing it. The house was run down. Example 1. John stepped around the hole in the floor. Typically, you don't see holes in the floor in a house that's well kept. Typically, obviously, there are examples, but this is just a basic way of showing that the house isn't all the way up to standard. Example 2. The scent of mildew only added to the bouquet of scents in the house. Rat droppings, dirt, and something dead were also mixed in. Not only are we showing, through here or, through our visual, but we're also showing through our sense of smell, the scent of mildew. Sometimes when you go into a rundown house, there are different scents that greet you, and they can be any number of them. Example 3. What have I gotten myself into? John thought to himself as he bagged the remains of the only resident in the past 10 years, a rat. Here we're giving a time span of how long nobody's been in the house. So because we're talking about, it's rat infested, or at the very least it has rat in there, we're showing that, hey, nobody's been here a while, nobody's taken care of it. It's all the implication that the house is run down. It was a dark and stormy night. Here we have that pretty cliche opening that people always warn us against. Becky peered into the night, not seeing much beyond the reflections of the rain. This is kind of this isn't giving us creepy vibes, as we're going to have a little bit later, but this gives us it's night and it's raining. Dark and stormy night. Not a lot to it. Becky ran to avoid the rain on her way to the car, though darkness hid the puddles effectively. So we're implying with the darkness and the rain that this is, again, a dark and stormy night. Example 3. The rain came down like sheets as she drove her car down the mountain pass. What I wouldn't give for at least some moonlight. Here, again, we're saying, hey, there's a ton of rain, and because we're mentioning moonlight here, we're implying that it's at night. If it was daytime, she wouldn't be asking for any sort of light at all, because there would already be some there. She seemed uncomfortable. We want to be concerned about how we're showing it and natural involuntary responses. Katie wrapped her arms around herself as she sat there. Wrapping your arms around yourself is a way of self-protection. Typically, this is happening when you are uncomfortable. Katie shifted away from him, but he reclosed the distance. We're showing, hey, this guy, she moved away from him. He wasn't aware that he was doing this, and so he got back closer to her, making her even more uncomfortable. Example 3. I could see Katie from the other side of the room, her eyes looking away from him, her hands pulled into her sleeves. These are defense mechanisms for somebody who's uncomfortable. Hey, Katie, do you have a minute? I got something I need to ask you, I said. Instantly, her eyes lit up. Here, we're indicating that she's uncomfortable, and we're confirming it with when she's given an opportunity to get away from whoever she needs to get away from, she responds positively. I felt relieved. A weight felt lifted off. Example 2. I took a deep breath, like for the first time in a while. Example 3. Tears began to form in my eyes. For the first time in a while, I had a future, something more to exist. Typically you see different things, like you got, something was taken care of. The car was fixed or something like that. This is indication that you're dealing with something a little bit more time. You're dealing with something that has had an impact over your life for a time span, where you don't understand what's going on. But in the example here, tears began to form in my eyes. For the first time in a while, I had a future, something more than to exist. Here we're saying that not only is he or she feeling relieved, but because of what was going on in their life, there was something where it prevented them from even seeing what was going on or seeing beyond what was going on, and their focus was completely on what they were dealing with right then and there. And that's a bigger trauma or bigger stressor in our lives, is when we can't see beyond it, we're only seeing what we have. He was helpless. He sat on the bench, his head in his hands. These are physical indicators of helplessness. He simply stared, wondering how he got there. We're visually showing it. Now we're showing, yes, we're visually showing it, but we're also showing an internal side of things without actually verbalizing that internal monologue, wondering why he got there, or wondering how he got there. He glared at the landlord, his fist clenched. Again, we're giving visual cues of what's going on, and then we're also following it up with a internal monologue or internal dialogue of what this person's thinking. He's right. If I had another place to live, I would. He's angry at the landlord. We know this. He's right. We're giving, in 2 sentences, we're given a pretty clear understanding of what's going on and how they're feeling about it, or how this person's feeling about it. It was raining as she drove. Example 1. The windshield wipers rhythmically broke the silence. We're giving a little bit more than, hey, it's raining and she's driving. Windshield wipers, they're used only when they're raining. So it's pretty easy to use windshield wipers moving as an indication that it's raining and that she's driving. Despite it being midday, she could only see a few yards ahead of her windshield, the wipers unable to keep up. Here we're talking about it's so bad that the windshield wipers aren't helpful at all. Example 3. She wasn't sure which affected her vision more, the rain on the windshield or the tears in her eyes. Darn him. We're giving a little bit more than it's raining outside, but it's raining while she's driving, but also that she's going through an emotional thing. We're contrasting, or we're kind of layering on the situation by saying, hey, it's raining, and we're doubling on with, her crying. 11. I threw a microwave-ready meal in and waited. It felt like no sooner than I had sat down that my plate was empty. Here, we're adding a little bit more to it. We're adding some depth to it because, yes, he ate, but he ate so quickly he didn't realize it. So there's other things going on. We're giving a little bit more showing of the internal mindset of the reader, or the internal mindset of the character. I wasn't really hungry. I just needed to do something to I wasn't really hungry. I just needed to do something to fill the silence in my apartment. Once done, I could only bring myself to stare at the plate, unable to stand up. Here, we're doubling down on this whole thing of dealing with eating. We're showing that he ate. That's kind of background to, we're showing a lot more of the person and what they're dealing with, and that they're going through a struggle right now. The pizza looked delicious, but it tasted terrible. The plate had a single slice with only one bite taken out of it. What was bitten sat beside it. Here we're implying that somebody wanted the slice, they ate it, or they bit into it, but what was bitten was left beside it, which means they spat it out. Example 2. Bobby took a bite, but spit it back out. Bobby took a long drink of soda to wash away the taste. We're doubling down on that. It didn't taste good at all. But there's no real build up to the whole thing. The third one. Bobby smiled as he looked over to his seat, the scent making his mouth water. He took a bite. An expectation of cheesy joy filled him. Ugh. Bobby spat the pizza back out. We're adding an internal gross, response, and Bobby spitting it back out, or he spat it back out. A little bit more stronger verb when it came to the pizza. I was jealous of my neighbor's car. I sneered at my driver as he drove his brand new car into their driveway. This is a pretty basic one. Say, hey, didn't like the fact that his neighbor got a brand new car. We're kind of implying that there's an element of jealousy here. Example number 2. I regretted telling my neighbor my dream car. The next week, that same model sat in his garage. We're talking already starting with, hey, I like this car. So when his neighbor shows up with this car, it's implied that the jealousy just follows. That jerk, I thought to myself as my neighbor drove my dream car past me. His smile told me that he knew what he was doing. Again, we're showing he's upset. And then we talk about my dream car. And then, so we're implying that there's a level of jealousy without actually stating that there's a level of jealousy. She was afraid. Example 1. The creak in the hallway sent a shiver up her spine. The creak is the element, but the effect that it's having on her, sending a shiver up her spine. Example number 2. She peeked out from under the covers at the slightly ajar door at the foot of her bed. Here we're building a bit of a suspense of, hey, there's an ajar door. You know, typically when we don't see what's going on the other side of it, there's a implication that there could be a threat on the other side. She was sure she heard a voice whisper her name from under her bed, but she closed her eyes and brought the covers up over her head. You know, we're adding another element to, not only is she hearing things, where it's coming from, and her response to it, which we're not necessarily given. I didn't necessarily put her age, but anybody who hears, goes through this is going to have the same concerns. She was curious. Example 1, she bent over looking through the hole. You don't look through a hole if you're not curious. Example number 2, she walked past the door a couple of times before trying the handle. We're showing here is that her curiosity got the better of her. She knew that she shouldn't be going in there, but for any number of reasons, but she built up the courage to try the handle. She was told not to go into the room, but that just goaded her on. Now I have to see what's in there. Here we're adding another element of what's going on in her mind by actually stating explicitly what she's thinking. Tina was a spoiled child. Example 1. Tina pouted when her mom put the candy back. This is a soft implication that she's spoiled. She wanted something and she's upset that her mom didn't let her have it. That's very, very soft. Tina threw herself on the ground and screamed she wanted the pink pony. This is a harder implication that Tina is extremely spoiled. That's about right, I thought, when I found out that we were going to Tina's favorite restaurant for my birthday. Here we're giving an impact of Tina's spoiledness and how it's affecting somebody else. On my birthday is implying that typically if my birthday is a celebration of my life, then we're going to be doing the things that I like. But what we're showing here is Tina gets to pick the restaurant. It's her favorite restaurant. Therefore, even though it's my birthday, I don't get anything. What I desire falls second to Tina. Pretty heavily implying that Tina is spoiled. When her brother refused to give her the book, she became angry. She chased him, trying to get her book back. She called the mom when he refused to hand her book back, sticking her tongue out when her mom told him to give it back. We're a third person in this, and then we can do this in a first person. I could hear her stomping down the hallway towards me. Her brother had just walked past me carrying a book. This is too early for this. Not only are we saying, hey, she's stomping down the hallway, she's hangry. Her brother has a book. We're implying that he took the book from her. And we're showing the effects of this on the person making the statement, or the POV that we're in right now. Satisfied that everything was packed, Tina grabbed her bag. Checking the list one more time, Tina slung her bag over her shoulder. Example 2. After repacking the bag, she sat on it to zip it. Pulling it up to its wheels, she took one more look around the room and closed the door behind her. We're implying that she left, that she's all packed up, that we're seeing a situation where she's ready to leave. Slamming everything into the bag, she checked the last room. With a huff, she dragged her bag out of the room. Now let's see how he will react to this. Not only are we saying that she got everything out of the room, but we're also seeing how she's looking to have this impact whoever he is. The view over the entire city was soothing. Example 1. I took a breath as I sipped my coffee, watching the sun rise over the city. It was dusk when I got to the roof. As the lights began to flicker on, I could feel my stress disappear. Here we're doing an inverse of it's the sunrise and then the sunset. We're seeing two different sides. Both are valid. The hum of the early risers was a symphony to my tired ears. I always took time to watch the sunrise over the city. It helped me give me perspective. Here we're talking about, it's how it's soothing him is it gives him perspective. We're implying that it's soothing, but we're implying it's soothing because it's giving him perspective. The cabin was romantic. The light of candles mixed with the scent of roses. Here, not only we're doing a visual, we're also doing a sense of smell. Example 2. The table was rustic, lit by only a candle. My husband stood behind a chair. My favorite wine sat in a cooler. We're adding layers to this. We're not actually explicitly stating these things. We're trying to just imply them. The whole cabin was lit by candles and a roaring fireplace. The scent of roses and my favorite meal whiffed into my nose. The thrill of excitement shot down my back as my cheek begins to burn. And even then, we could add to this. It was just the two of us, and maybe 3 before the end of the night. Here, we are really, really implying that there are some things that are going to happen after the dinner. This just adds a lot to what's going on. All right, so that's all I had. So hope you'll join me again on Tuesday. Until next time, bye.
I am a poor, wayfaring stranger. I'm traveling through this world of woe, yet there's no sickness, toil, nor danger in that bright land to which I go.